Welcome to the Kentucky History Channel, where we strive to bring you all the Kentucky history content you want and you deserve. Kentucky is a part of all of us, and we plan on covering all the history we can, from Pike County to Fulton County, from Louisville to Harlan. Here on our YouTube channel, you can find many videos dedicated to different events, people, governors, and places in Kentucky. There's something for everybody. While you're here, if you like the channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you get notified anytime new Kentucky history is available. And if you want to support the channel, we have a Patreon page as well, or patreon.com/kyhistorypod. Welcome back to the Kentucky History Podcast. I'm your host, Jameson Cable, and we're going to continue our discussion with Meredith Dubree, Executive Director of Breckinridge County United Economic Development. After getting about to the 1900s, did you all any tobacco wars or anything to that sense?
No, a little bit different here. Tobacco is the cash crop, and still is in some ways. We're still a larger tobacco producing county in the state, but we didn't have some of the strife with that you have further south. We're just good old burley tobacco, so a little bit different from some of the production ways that they have further south of us.
When did the railroad come in? Because that's a game changer.
Yeah, so all that's in that 1880s, 90s period, and we have several of our little towns, just like Irvington, that exploded around the rail coming through and defined the economies of those areas. In Breckinridge County, it goes Irvington and north of Hardinsburg. So we had some like outlying, tracks in the area, but the primary line was north of Hardinsburg and through a very rural area, and then cut through Cloverport. And so that kind of continued Cloverport's commercial dominance in the area through that period, but added Irvington as well to that string of towns.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna share us a little map here of Hardin County that might help people visualize kind of this pattern here. And let's see, you got Cloverport, Hardinsburg, and then where's Irvington?
It's up in the corner, but over here by Meade County, right in the line.
There you go. I see it now. Yeah. So there you go. I mean, it is a pretty large county. Like, any good stories about some of these little extra communities here you can throw out or know about? I know some of these might not even exist anymore, but
we could dig in on the small communities for a time. One of my favorites is, you can see on there, Axtell, which is one of our little communities, is so named because when the residents of that community were trying to think of a name for their post office, they mailed the postmaster in DC and said they were going to ask them what they should name the community if they'd tell them TL misspelled, something like that. And so they said Axtell, sent it back that way. So that's how Axtell was so named, because nobody around here could spell.
I don't think there's a more Kentucky named place then. If that
No, it's perfect. Not on the map is a place called Pinchico, which is somewhere over here on the border of Hancock County. And Pinchico is famous because it's not real. If you're looking for Pinchico and you're asked for directions, you're always not quite there. You've just gone past it. But for some reason, it's still referenced as if it's a real place. Maybe at some point it was, but it's to our knowledge, it's a myth, the town. So that's Pinchico. Moving forward a bit in history, while we've got the map up, this whole northern kind of pointy part of the county that's close to Meade County formerly was a number of towns. You can see Chenault, Lahant, Ammons. None of those exist today. Those are all now part of a wildlife management area, Kentucky Fish and Wildlife. that was some of the original settlements in the county, and there were
Oh,
many little ferries along there, and a number of communities um, and large family farms. And a gentleman came in the 40s, 40s, I believe. Might be wrong on that one, but bought up 4,000, 5,000 acres of that property
wow.
with plans to make a giant cattle farm, and cleared off the area, and kind of did away with these old communities. And his plans didn't work out, so he sold the thing wholesale to Kentucky Fish and Wildlife,
Wow.
who still has it today. And so that's one of the ways where our county. I talked about our population not having
Mhm.
grown substantially for a long time. At one point, there were many more people in certain parts of the county, and they were kind of moved out for various plots and schemes that didn't work. And so all of those communities, alas, are lost to us now.
Wow. Well,
Yeah.
but and so in this area, what can people do there now? I mean, just fish and hunt and stuff, or
Yeah. And it is beautiful. It's a protected area, but and we have people that come from out of the county to hunt in the area. There are some trails, and people go and ride horses, but yeah, so hunting and fishing.
oh, well,
Great views
that's
of the
good.
river.
Yeah. Yeah. Does that include Sample? Did Sample get taken away as well?
Sample is still there. There
Okay.
is still Sample. Union Star is definitely still there, but and you've got signs still for all these places, and Chenault's. There's still a couple big beautiful homes up there on the river, but the bulk of those communities, unfortunately, like I said, is just kind of gone away.
Well, that's the way it goes sometimes.
Yeah.
Well, so moving on, say uh, past the 1900s
Mhm.
and so forth. What took place in Breckinridge County then?
Yeah. Almost part of me. There was an attempt at some point for Breckenmead to carve out and make a third county, but
Oh,
it was too contentious. It never worked out. I
oh,
think it was going to be called Hanson. So almost, it was almost Breck and Mead, but I think that was in the 1870s or 80s. But um,
the Hanson County. Is
yeah,
that what you're? Okay.
I think it would have been called Hanson. Yeah, but it did not go through, which is
Well,
so I
good.
guess that we just couldn't quite get along.
Well,
But no, fall in the turn of the century is when we unfortunately have a couple of years period where we see kind of the decline of Cloverport
mhm,
due to the fact there were two very large fires that the town never quite recovered from. But that's when we start to see more growth in and around Hardinsburg, and for it to emerge as the larger town in the area. One industry that we're really proud of that emerged in the kind of interwar period in the 30s is textile manufacturing, which
okay.
became a really prominent business here in the cottage industry style. And that all began with a lady named Eleanor Beard, who her husband owned a store here. During the Depression, when people weren't making a lot of money, he started taking wool as payments. And with all this excess wool, she started a quilting studio. And largely the quilting was done in women's homes, but these were quilts that the style is called trapunto. It's an Italian style.
Mhm.
Miss Beard was a cultured and traveled lady and had lived other places before she came to Hardinsburg, and had learned this style of quilting. And she had trunk shows and brought her quilts nationwide. She sold in New York City. Um, I know they found pieces that the studio made in the estates of some like old Hollywood actresses,
Oh, wow.
and this industry provided an income for a lot of people in the area in a time when there wasn't a lot of money going around. And
Oh,
there ended up being four or five of these studios that emerged, and it was, in a time when women didn't make a lot of money outside the
mhm,
home, it created this whole different economy in the area, and ended up being a part of a later Department of Labor actually lawsuit, actually kind of addressing whether these people were being fairly compensated. It wound up that they were considered contract labor, and nothing came of it. But it certainly kind of marked this very interesting shift in people making money in the area and created this whole new industry that's actually still here in some ways today. The studio is the oldest business in Hardinsburg, still found
Oh,
in
cool.
1921, still operational. One of our larger employers in the area. It's owned by a company called Leontine Linens, which is based out of New Orleans, but the studio itself is still here and it's operational. It's
Cool.
making quilts in the same style that it did starting out in the 1920s.
Wow, that is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's something that we're very proud of, and you know they still export their quilts and other linens um, nationwide. It's not, I would say, our largest industry by employment, but it's such a niche thing to still have people making textiles in that way,
Yeah.
and so we're very proud that that tradition has lasted here for so
Yeah.
long.
What's it? I mean, it's about 100 years old. I
Hmm.
mean,
Yes,
wow,
yeah.
that's pretty
We
cool.
celebrated their 100th a couple years ago.
And again, just one of those things that you would not think about or know about, unless you were probably from the area
Mhm.
or obviously researched it or something like that. But still, a pretty nifty thing for Breckinridge and
Yeah.
what's it? Clover, uh,
Cloverport's the river town,
Cloverport.
Hardinsburg.
There
Yeah,
you
which
go.
the
Yeah,
studios here in Hardinsburg.
yeah.
Um, which so again, it kind of at that point is when Hardinsburg started to become a little bit larger than the other two towns,
Mhm.
which everything's so dependent on river and rail, and as those things, the transportation of those methods boomed and bust, so did the towns
Mhm.
around them,
Yeah.
and you know, I think now that's part of what I do for a living is what do we, how do we preserve our communities and make things happen here in light of the changes of those
Yeah.
means of transportation. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. So,
that's
um,
another day.
that's your sales pitch right
Yeah.
there. Um, so and with those towns, like, I mean, was there other ones that popped up with the railroads and then went away as the railroads left? Um,
There are a few. Glendean's another like very small town that today
mhm,
is just a few little homes, but at one point was a major rail community. Um, you know, all along that little stretch, except the rail kind of goes north of Hardinsburg, but there's this whole little string of like Mystic is the name of one. We have wonderful town names, but and through Stevensport and all those areas that certainly kind of saw their fortunes live and die by the rail traffic, um, and again now are largely just you know some of the homes and a few businesses, but don't have the depots and the grandeur. We do have a depot in Harned still, which is right outside of Hardinsburg, that's still standing. Of course,
mhm.
all the tracks are gone, so
Yeah,
it's kind of funny
interesting.
now to see like, oh, it's a rail depot, but there's no evidence that there ever was
Same
any
thing.
rail. Yeah,
Same thing in Stanford.
yeah,
There's a depot, but no real rails or nothing. Well, let's talk a little bit about another hot topic: schools and
yes,
consolidation. How was that?
tricky. Yeah, so at one point, of course, there were many local community schools. Um, and now we do have Breckinridge County Public Schools, and we have Cloverport Independent Schools. So Cloverport does still have
Mhm.
their own school district. Hardinsburg and Irvington are the two largest ones that combined, and I would say that we are still grumpy about that 60 or so years on. But yes, there was a time when you know you had dozens and dozens of these schools that we have now consolidated into
Mhm.
just one public school district, and then Cloverport Independent Schools. We do also still have an interparochial school at St. Romuald Church that goes through eighth grade. Um, we have a large number of Catholic churches, and they all had their own schools at the time in the community that has still kind of carried on that legacy with St.
Yeah.
Romuald schools.
Yeah. Okay. And how many elementary schools do you have now?
So we have four in the Breckinridge County School District. We have
Hmm.
St. Romuald, and then Cloverport has their own elementary school.
Okay. Gotcha. Well,
Mhm.
that's a good. I guess for me, always a good judgment on the size. I'm in Lincoln County, and we have five, and I think
Mhm.
Lincoln's population is like 24,000. So pretty close.
Very close.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and I don't know. It's a kind of a crazy way to figure out the size of a school of a county. How many elementary schools do you got?
Uh, Listen, in counties as large as some of ours are, but as sparsely populated, what better metric than
Yeah.
than how many schools?
Mhm. What so I mean after say 50s, 60s, anything else big events that worth noting, I guess.
Yeah, I will jump back briefly into the 30s, which is a story that we don't necessarily love telling, but one of the, I think, more prominent events of the 20th century in Breckinridge County is that the second to last legal hanging in the United States took place in Hardinsburg on Courthouse Square, which is a story that, again, is something that we're not certainly proud of.
Mhm.
The gentleman was African American. He was accused of raping a white woman. There's much contention about whether that is a true story. What certainly is true is that he probably, well, definitely was not given a fair trial. Um, and so he was hung in our courthouse square in 1932. Uh, it's an odd thing because that sounds like so long ago, but I learned that story from my great grandfather who witnessed
Yeah.
it when he was 16.
Yeah.
And so, and that's something that there's been books and many things written about now as kind of the end of that horrible period when we had public executions. Um, but the gentleman's name was Sam Jennings. And so that's one of our unfortunate chapters in our history, but one that we don't want to look over or past, and that
Hmm.
was certainly part of it. Um,
And that's less
so
than
yeah,
100 years ago.
less than 100
So
years ago. Yes,
that is
I think the last one was in Owensboro. You probably know that better than I do, but it was a couple of
maybe.
years after. But yeah, so that was in 1932. It seems like I said, when people that I grew up with knowing, when my great grandfather is telling us these things, we want to think that they're the very distant past, so far away, but they're unfortunately
Mhm.
not as distant as we'd
No,
like
not
them to
that far
be.
back. Yeah, yeah. And that's the thing. I know, people, and this is just uh, uh, an overview or an analysis. We get on to kids and stuff about playing video games and stuff, but back 100 so years ago, they went to hangings and stuff to,
Yes,
that was like the entertainment and like, oh,
it's horrible. I mean, it looking back, it was such a brutal time, and people were awful. And I think about my youngest brother is that age, and I would be horrified to think that he had seen something like that.
yeah,
And
yeah,
my great grandfather was like, "Well, I was on my way to work, and I saw a hanging. Like it's
no
horrific.
big deal.
It's he lived a block away, but yeah, it's
Yeah,
just
yeah,
a horrible thing that people are so callous to each other and treated people that way.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So no
yeah.
more though after that.
No more of
So,
that. But and then of course past that, moving on further into the 1900s is when we had our final courthouse fire in the 1950s. Which is when we unfortunately lost most of our records because that one, when the guerrillas, Confederate guerrillas, burned the courthouse in the Civil War, they had some knowledge ahead of time that might happen.
so
So
nice of them.
it was nice to know in advance. Thank you, Sue Monday. No.
Yeah.
um, but when it burned in the 50s, obviously an accident. Well, we hope it was an accident. Who
Mhm.
knows? But so we lost new records at that point and had a new courthouse built in the 60s in the very 60s style. So our courthouse is a very different look than many Kentucky
Mhm.
courthouses. If you happen to come and visit,
A
which you
lot of
absolutely should.
a lot of
And
flowery furniture, full on.
not very, uh, very severe. Lots of
Uh,
straight lines and
okay.
very modern looking for that time, but
Mhm.
um, certainly different aesthetic than our traditional looking courthouses so many counties have. Um, and then I'll say the defining moment of Breckinridge County, though, in the 50s and 60s, is that Riff River Dam was built,
Mhm.
which completely changed our community and created Rough River Lake. So the Rough River flows into the Green from Hardin and kind of
Mhm.
at the border of Breck and Grayson counties. And the dam was built in the late 50s into 1960s and created a 5,100 acre recreational lake for flood control purposes at that time and prior. Many waterways around the state were dammed or adjusted for flood control purposes. You're welcome, Ohio County, I guess, that we were taking care of making sure Hartford doesn't go underwater. But and so the lake really has been one of the economic drivers of the community ever since. And has we have many visitors to the lake every summer. The current estimate's about 2 million a year.
Wow.
Yes, yeah.
That's a lot.
A huge number of summer residents as well come and join us. And so so that completely, I think, changed the course of both of Breck and Grayson counties at that time when the lake was founded in the 60s.
Yeah, which I mean that happened quite a bit. A lot of, like you said, a lot of places, dammed up some rivers and got some lakes over that time.
Yeah, and I just think about the way that it completely altered the whole literal geography of the southern part of the county, where you have communities that were and are not because of the way the water moved, but then whole new communities are emerged in that time, kind of following the creation of the lake.
Yeah, so probably the biggest tourist attraction, you think, the lake, or?
Oh yes, the lake's number one. Lake's definitely number one. Say it's 2 million people is hard to beat.
yeah, that's quite a bit. Well, any famous people or anything? I mean, besides people we've already mentioned, maybe.
Yeah, so we've mentioned Judge Holt and his home, which is I'd say historically probably one of our more well-known native sons. More contemporarily, we have Butch Beard, who was a professional basketball player and went on to coach in the NBA, and brought us a state basketball championship in 1965. So he's a native of Hardinsburg, and a couple actresses. Lisa Thornhill's an actress from Hardinsburg, but not too many. We try to claim Lincoln partially, as he
everybody does
through here, as everyone in Kentucky does. Spent some time here on his way to Illinois, but yeah, that's just a couple of our famous people. We do have Wiley Rutledge, who was on the Supreme Court, was born at Tar Springs at the resort in the 1800s, and a number of government officials, folks in that capacity that came from here throughout the years.
Yeah,
we have a CCC camp here that became the FFA camp.
Oh, hey.
It's still here in Hardinsburg. So that's how many people come to know us, is that they come to FFA camp, but that started out as a CCC camp in the 1930s. And I think one of our other famous kind of middle of the 20th century incidents is that there was a B-52 bomber carrying nuclear weapons that exploded above Glendine. So we're all very lucky to be here.
Oh gosh!
And and they didn't blow up. And there was an attempt to provide more fuel. The plane collided with the plane that was fueling it, and they exploded in air.
Oh.
But the nuclear weapons didn't detonate, and so they were recovered on the ground. And yeah. So again, we're just all very lucky that we're still here and not a crater. But yeah. And today said we're still going strong. Very lucky to have I think a thriving ag community and a number of small manufacturers in the area that we're pretty well known for our area technology center, which was founded in the 60s and is still operational, and are very proud of that being our contemporary legacy. I think is turning out a large number of excellent tradespeople. But yeah, that's all the history I can think of.
well, there's plenty more, I'm sure.
Yes, I don't want to. We could tell stories all day, but I don't want to get too in the weeds. I will tell one more if we have time. Kind of
go for it. Yeah, go for it.
Old house. One of my other favorite ones is if you get to come and visit Breck County, which again we hope everyone will, because it's an absolutely beautiful place, and we do have a number of fun homes and places to visit, and drag strip and the lake, and there's all kinds of things to do. And if you enjoy being outside, it's definitely the right place for you. But one of my favorite things to see in the county is a ginkgo tree,
Oh,
which are not native to Kentucky,
no,
of
nope.
course. And on the grounds at the Holt home, we have a ginkgo, and the story, possibly, we don't know for sure, but the possible story is that Henry Clay, on one of his trips as an ambassador in China, collected a number of ginkgos and brought them back to the United States and shared them with some friends of his. And of course, he and Judge Holt knew each other from their time in politics.
There
And
you go.
possibly this is one of the Henry Clay ginkgos.
There you go. Well,
Whether it is or not, it's unusual and it's
Yeah.
huge and beautiful. So
If somebody else can think of a better way of getting there, then we might consider it. But
yeah, I mean, it's I don't know how many other ginkgos were floating around in rural Kentucky in the 1850s. So we'll hope that it's one of the Henry Clay ginkgos.
there you go. All right, well, until it's proven wrong, it is.
Exactly.
Oh,
That's how I like my history. Until you can tell me I'm wrong, I'm going to claim it.
yeah, there you go. Well, Meredith, we appreciate you coming on here and talking about Breck County. I like that a lot better than having to spell out the whole Breckinridge.
Yes, I believe that I'm correct in saying that we are the longest named county. So we are deserving of our nickname.
There you go.
So yes, Breck County is what we all call each other.
So that works. That works for me. But thanks for coming on here and sharing all this information. Again, if you come up with some more stories, or if we want to talk about just an individual town or community there, you are more than welcome to come on and discuss it even further.
Yeah, books could be written, I'm sure, about each of our little towns. But I so appreciate the opportunity to come on, just give a broad overview, little background
Yeah,
for people, and some things for people to come and check out. So we're very hospitable. We love company. So
Well, 2 million
yes,
summer, right? So
exactly. So as people are traveling around Kentucky, as I like to do, come and see us. And I'm very proud to be from the area and from Kentucky in general. So thank you so much to you for doing this program and for spotlighting all of our counties and all of our history. I think that's wonderful.
well, that's what the podcast is for.
Yeah.
So thanks again for joining us, and thank you all for listening. We'll see you next time.
Welcome to the Kentucky History Channel, where we strive to bring you all the Kentucky history content you want and you deserve. Kentucky is a part of all of us, and we plan on covering all the history we can, from Pike County to Fulton County, from Louisville to Harlan. Here on our YouTube channel, you can find many videos dedicated to different events, people, governors, and places in Kentucky. There's something for everybody. While you're here, if you like the channel, hit the subscribe button and the notification button so you get notified anytime new Kentucky history is available. And if you want to support the channel, we have a Patreon page as well, or patreon.com/kyhistorypod. You've probably heard about Daniel Boone, but what about the rest of the frontiersmen who came to Kentucky and settled? That's what we want to bring to the Kentucky History Channel. The stories of the untold, the stories of those forgotten. One thing to expect on our channel is great Kentucky content. Some stories that you've never heard of. The Night Riders, who began in western Kentucky. Bloody Monday, the riots in Louisville. The assassination of Governor Goebel, the only governor ever assassinated in the United States. Stories from all over Kentucky, stories that are unforgettable once you've heard them. You can find out who counties in Kentucky are named after and how your county got started. From beginning to end, we plan to document every county in Kentucky, all 120. Reach out to us on all of our social media platforms: Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. And also leave a comment on one of our YouTube videos. You can also check out our podcast episodes. You can subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and many more. We're always seeking to find more Kentucky history so we can bring it to you, the viewers, the listeners. We want all the stories and all the events from Kentucky's great history to be told and shared everywhere.